Hi guys, it's Sue. You can hear the printer in the background, so I just thought I'd do a random video today. I'm preparing for a pop-up shop at the moment, and so I'm just getting some notebooks done, and I thought I might make one and just show you how easy it is to do if you're doing a market stall, or even if you're wanting some gifts for friends. Christmas is coming up. And it's just handy to have these little notebooks. Here's a couple that I've already done, and they don't take a lot of time, really. I haven't decorated inside, so they're just so that people can put them in the bag, write notes. You can treat it as a journal if you like. You can decorate it more. For the moment, I am just doing mine what I call nude. So I'll just show you quickly through what I've done. So I've just secured it closed with satin seam binding and an eyelet, as you can see through the cover there. These are beautiful pieces from Daisy at Tsunami Rose. These are her ephemera pieces. So they come up, they're printed up as separate pieces with, I don't know whether I've got one printed off, so that I can sort of explain myself a little bit better. These are a smaller version. So they're meant to be like big cards or separate pages. So what I've done is the ones that are printed side by side, I've cut these out and I use them. So you're not going to see that white piece. As you can tell, I've actually secured the spine with some fabric. And so that's what I'm going to use today, is I've printed some of these off. Which I think are just absolutely stunning, and these are from Daisy's Charming Fragments set part 2, I think, journal pages. So this is what I'm going to be using, one of these today, so I'll decide on which one I'm going to do in a moment. So also what I thought I'd do is I'm going to commit, and hopefully I can keep to this. I was feeling a little bit lost at the moment with my mojo again. I don't know what's going on with me, so I thought I'm going to try and commit myself to doing a video every Tuesday and uploading it on a Tuesday. So hopefully, you know, that's something that will keep me in check. And I mean, I'm always doing something, whether I'm cutting out printables or doing that sort of thing, always doing something, but I just don't seem to have my inspiration again, and it's really frustrating. So anyway, let's get on with it, and I'll just show you. These are a really great gift idea. I love them. I mean, if I got any of these as a gift, I'd just be so stoked. So so this is all I've done. I've printed it on this paper. So it's a HP Color Choice. It's 200 GSM. It's got like a satin feel to it. It's hard to explain. So it's like a digital paper. So that's what I've used. And then I am actually going to be backing it with some papers that I've dyed. So as you can see, using the plastic doiling method from I saw on Medieval Mirage's YouTube channel. She shows you how to do this. So that's what I've done with that. And in here I've just put random papers, all coffee dyed or tea dyed, throughout, different sizes. So you know, they can be decorated. The recipient can decorate them themselves, or they can just use it as a notebook. So just a beautiful little gift idea, or a great idea, I think, for market stalls. So that's that one. I mean, they're all different sizes, and as I said, I've just secured the spine with a little bit of fabric, and I've sewn the fabric as well. So here's another one, just with random size papers, different papers, and the closure seam binding as well. So we might get started. I'm actually going to just very quickly, which I should have done beforehand, open a window because it's quite warm today. That's better. Just hope we don't get too much noise. So alrighty, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop these aside somewhere, and you've got me my space is just a huge mess. I have just got literally things piled up around me. Like, look at this. This is my keyboard that I've got in front of me, and I've just got bits and pieces that I'm working on piled up in front of me, to the left of me, to the right of me, to the back of me. To get out from my chair, I have to actually step over things. So I don't know, does anybody else get like that? It's just it's a mess. It's a mess. But anyway, it is what it is. So what I've got is, I do have a piece of fabric left over. It's about 8 inches, and I cut these about an inch and a quarter wide, because I don't want it to take up too much of the graphics, because I mean, it's just beautiful. So so I already had that cut, so I thought I'd try and use that one. So I'm just trying to work out which one it would probably look the best on. And I think I'm just going to go with that one. So these I will pop aside, and I'm sure that I will use those again. So let me just make sure I'm in frame. Okay, so push that up a little bit. All right, so first thing that I do is I just get my piece of cardboard that I'm going to back this with, because I don't want that to be so stark on the inside. So I've just gone crazy with doing a lot of dyeing. I mean, look at that. That is just stunning. Absolutely love that. I have scanned some of these so that I can print them off and reuse them as I want to. So I'm actually going to go with that one. The first one I chose. I think that's half my problem sometimes, is I fiddle around so much trying to decide what I'm going to use, and then I just lose all inspiration. So I'm just going to cut this down first. You can glue it on straight away and then cut it away, but I just want to get the majority of that that coffee dyeing effect in there. So if you do cut these down and there's any little bits of white showing, that doesn't matter, because we'll be inking them so that you can't see that. So basically there's really no measurements or anything in this. You can do it with you could do it with bits of scrapbooking paper that you might have. Yeah, there's no measurements really. So okay, what I'm going to do, and I've done this before, I've glued it to the wrong side. So I want this on the inside. And I want that, yeah, so I want this piece on the inside that you see first, okay? So we're going to glue it to the top right-hand edge of that sheet. So basically all I do is I just glue the piece that I'm gluing down quite liberally. We're going to be stitching around the edge, so it doesn't matter if it doesn't get right to the edge. But the idea is just to have this secured. So I like to just sort of fairly well cover the back. So we said to the top right, didn't we? So I'm going to tip that around like that, just so that I don't have my head in shot. And just line it up as best you can. If it's overhanging a bit, it doesn't matter. We can trim that off as well. And I'm just going to use my brayer. I've just found that I've been getting a better coverage with my glue by using the brayer. Normally I just, ouch, don't run over your finger. Normally I just use my hands, but it can get quite bumpy. So just use a brayer or a bone folder or something like that, just to spread your glue underneath, because you can, as it dries, you can end up with lumps in there. Just go over it and just make sure it feels quite smooth. So that's pretty good. Okay, so then all I do is I just trim that down. I'm just going to do that with scissors. Let's cut that out. So hopefully, guys, I can hold myself to doing a video and uploading it every Tuesday. The reason I chose a Tuesday is just because where I work, the whole centre closes on a Tuesday, so I know that I definitely don't work on that day. So I just thought if I commit myself to doing something, it doesn't matter, I'm just going to do, even if it's just a small thing, making a tag or something, it just might get my inspiration and my motivation flowing again, hopefully. So basically that's the basis of your cover. So at this point I'm going to quickly ink around the edge. So I'm using Distress Oxide Vintage Photo. You can't even see because I just put the pad sitting on top of it. And just be, like, try not to be perfect. And I can see haven't put that square on that piece of backing cardstock, so I'm just going to trim that down as well. So this just gets rid of any white edges, and I mean, you don't have to ink, obviously. I just like that effect, so I choose to ink everything. And sometimes, like I've said it before, ink can be your friend, so it can cover up all sorts of discrepancies or mistakes you've made. So but nothing's a mistake, is it? Everything's unique. It just becomes a unique item. So, and I might just very quickly just do around the edge on the inside. So as you can see, it doesn't take long, you know, to get, particularly when you can get some digitals, beautiful digitals, particularly like these from Daisy at Tsunami Rose. You just don't need to really do much work at all because they just speak for themselves. Okay, so at this point I would fold it. Now I probably would wait until the glue is properly dry, but for the sake of the video I'll do it today, and it's sorry if my head pops in screen. Okay, so I'm just going to fold that. I'm just going to burnish that with a bone folder, just so we get a nice edge. And you can see very slightly, there's about 1/16 of an inch of the front side that's coming over. We're not going to see that because we're going to cover that with fabric. Okay, so there you have the cover of your little notebook. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly duck over to my sewing machine, and I'm just going to sew around the edge there. You can do zigzag, you can do straight. I'm going to do a really wobbly double stitch of straight stitching. So I'll just pop you guys on pause and I will be back very shortly. Okay, I'm back. While I was at the machine, I just thought I would sew around the piece for the spine, and now that I've done that, I think it's actually too long, which it is. So I'm just going to have to trim that off a bit, and I will just briefly trim that off a fraction, just briefly, just duck to the machine and just stitch that top bit there. So I know, you know, not everybody has a sewing machine, so you don't have to stitch, that's fine. I make quilts, and I've sewn pretty much since I've left high school, so I've always had some sort of machine around. I just love the sewing effect. It's not the be all and the end all. Just with the cover, when you do glue it, just make sure if you're not going to sew it, just go straight, you know, closer to the edge, closer than what I did, just so that that's not going to lift once the notebook's being used, if that makes sense. Okay, so basically that's our cover, and as you can see, I like to do 2 rows of stitching using a straight stitch. The first row I try and keep it reasonably straight, but then the second row I'd make it really wobbly, so that if the first row isn't straight, it's meant to look like that. And that's it in the inside. Okay, so now all we do, actually what I might do is I will punch the holes for the eyelets first, because the first notebook that I did, I assembled it all and then did punch the holes, and then managed to punch holes through all the pages in my signature, so it wasn't a very bright thing to do. So basically I mean, normally I would eyeball it at 7 3/4 inches high. So what's that? 3.5, 3, 4, 5.3, 3.5. And if I can find a pencil, 3.5 and 3. So 3 and 7/8. So 3 and 7/8, and I'm just going to put a dot where I'm going to put the punch the hole. Now, as you can see, that's not lining up perfectly. So just get your bone folder and just repress that down so that it folds. There we go. So what did I say? 3 and 7/8. And 7/8. Bring that in a bit. There. And I use a crocodile. I love my crocodile. So just punch the hole. That one's going to go close to the stitching. So, and then we'll just put 2 eyelets in there as well. And I'm just going to use these antique gold ones, and then you just set those. Set that. So then you've got your eyelets put in ready for your seam binding. Okay. Just pop this out of the way. So there you have your front cover. So now all we need to do is just choose some papers to go in, and pretty much all I do is I just work out, I do measure this part, so I like to probably leave 1/8 of an inch top and bottom, and the same, or probably 1/4 of an inch of the measurement when I measure this way. So we want them to be about, let's say, 7 and 3/8. Let me see if I can find a piece of paper. Oh, guys, I have such a mess. I think this is what gets me down a lot of the time too, is so much mess. But that's how I create, unfortunately. So we want 7 and 3/8 high. And then this one, I want to make my pages, because once you get them all in, they're going to stick out the sides if you make them the same measurement as this. So you want to make them a little bit smaller. So I'm going to cut them 9.5, if you can see there. So I'm just putting the ruler at the, you know, about 1/4 of an inch in. And then this is a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch. But if we do 9.5, that's where they're going to sit, is there and there. So I think that's probably a good size. So 9.5 inches. So I always write them there too, because I always forget. So then I just gather papers that I have, and I should have a pile of papers here somewhere. I'm actually really loving this book at the moment. I know it's yellow and it can be quite bright, but I think it's just something different. I picked this up at TK Maxx. It's a passenger log or something. So I'm going to use some of this. So just going to roughly tear that out. What else have we got? I'm just going to grab... That's just throwing my piles everywhere here. So here's some coffee dye paper that I've got. So normally in these notebooks I add about 15 sheets. So that's going to give you 60 pages front and back. So I think that's quite nice for a little notebook. So I've got 2 here. 3. So these are all being dyed with red tea. So 3. Here's some more plain ones. So we'll go a few of them. 4, 5, 6, 7. They're all cardstock. Here's some grungy ones. We'll go 8. Get rid of that one. 8, 9. I've got my box with my ruled or grid papers in here that I've coffee dyed or tea dyed. So what are we up to? 9. So we'll go 10, 11. As I said, I like to put different sizes in if I can find any smaller ones. All sorts in here. I might put a bit of parchment in. 13. 14. I try not to, and we might just put, I put that one in. Oh look, let's put 16 in. I try not to think of too much about it because it becomes, like then I try and get everything too matchy and yeah, it just becomes, the whole ordeal becomes too much. So this one's quite crumpled and fragile, but I think I'll still put it in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it so that this torn edge is at the top. So where's my piece with my measurements? So we want 7 3/8 high and 9 1/2 wide, which is, all right, so I'm going to do this all on here. I just need the extender piece. So we're going to go 7 3/8. So I'm just going to cut the top at 7 1/2 there because of those bits that are sticking up, and then we want to go 9 1/2. 9 1/2. So that's not going to work. So what's that? Because I've already folded that. So 4 1/2 and 1/8. So 4 3/4. So that should be our width of our page that we need. It might be a little bit narrow. No, that's fine. And I am actually going to just trim a little bit. As I said, I do this quite randomly. I'm going to trim that bit off because there was a torn bit on there. So that one's going to be a shorter piece, but that's all good. So we'll get rid of that. So I'm going to do the folded pieces that I've got here first. So just to get a bit of an idea, I'm just going to do it this way. I'm going to cheat. And you can do that. Just put your pieces that you've already cut on top and cut your other pieces. Cut them down. So same thing, I'm just eyeballing that. So these I'm going to be careful. I'm going to just cut probably where that black line is, just so we don't cut too much into the image there. This is just from a, cut that crooked, a colouring in book, and I've just taken the images out and coffee dyed them. So let me just have a look. So that fits in there. So that's that and that. And this I don't know. I think I was trying to get lined pages, doing it on a Word document. So this is just a piece that I was playing around with. So we may as well use it up. And I'm going to cut this one a little bit shorter again. So it's going to be shorter again. As I said, I like all the random sizes. So now with these pieces, I hope I'm not too all over the place. So 7 3/8 high. So I'm going to try and get that torn piece off. Now this is going to be a little bit shorter than the measurements that I've said, but I wanted to get that torn piece off where I was really rough in tearing that. And we want it 9 1/2 wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this that way. So I'm only cutting this bit off on one page, one page. So 9 1/2 wide. And that's that. So just fold that. Where's all my other bits? So I try and double up, just save cutting your same pieces of paper. So we want 9.5 wide by 7 3/8, 7 and, oh, see, I've done that wrong, haven't I? 7 3/8 or 7 3/4. 7 3/8. It is 7 3/8. So we're going to go 1 2 3. So that's that. These grungy pieces, once again 9.5. And as you can tell, I'm not thinking really about, I'm not really looking at, I mean, obviously if you have pieces of paper with directional prints or anything like that, maybe think about how you're cutting them more so. But these, I'm just putting coffee dyed pieces in, so it doesn't really matter. And these strips here, I don't throw them out because I like to use them and make mini books to put in the journals, so I keep those as well. Or you can use them as on collage tags, that sort of thing. 1 2 3, 7 3/8. And we're getting there, guys. So I've just got these few bits. I'm going to cut these 3 as one. So we're going to go 9.5. by 7 3/8. 2 3. And that's your pages done. So I'll just clean up this mess that I've got here. These little bits, I've got so many of these that I've kept. They're good for stamping on, but if they're not that interesting, I'm just throwing them out at the moment because I've just got so many pieces. So, but they're good to stamp words and that sort of thing on. So I've got a whole basket full of them. So maybe that's another video that I can do, is we can just stamp and make some mini tags or something. All right. So now all I do is I just go through and I just fold. I don't know. I don't know whether I'm lazy or whether it's just because I'm a little bit time poor. I tend to, you know, fold 3 or 4 pieces all in one hit. Because you've allowed that extra, you know, you've cut your piece 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch smaller than the width of your cover. It doesn't matter if they're not perfect. We're not aiming for perfect. Well, I'm not aiming for perfect. It would be nice if we could do everything perfectly, but I mean, it is junk journaling after all, so it doesn't matter if they're a little bit out. I mean, you're not even going to notice in the scheme of things once the whole book's put together. You're not going to notice that glue hanging off my fingers at all. So these are all folded, and then all you've got to do is just work out how you want to put them in your book. So I think I'm going to do that one first. Actually, no, I won't. What I'll do is in the front, I'll put some of the wider ones. And then you just build your signature however you want to put it. Once again, I'm not thinking too much about what I'm putting where. And my fingers don't want to work. So I'll probably just try not to put the exact same paper back to back, I guess, just to mix it up a little bit. I think it just adds more interest to your book. Okay. Some of this yellow one in there. Might leave the yellow one in the middle in this one. So basically, there's your signature. So what I'm going to do though is I don't like how that piece of parchment paper is sticking out the side. So I'm just going to trim some of that off. Like so. So you can see what I mean, allowing that, taking, excuse me, that 1/2 to 1/4 of an inch off the width, so you don't cut your paper the exact width of your cover, because as you're building your signature, it's pushing the pages out. So that doesn't worry me at all. You're not going to see, actually you are going to see some of those. So some of them in the middle from about here onwards need to be trimmed as well. So we will do that now. I like to do that before sewing the signature in. Some ladies have amazing industrial guillotines that can be done after. I would rather do it now. I mean, this Tim Holtz guillotine is amazing, but I would rather do it now for fear that I would ruin the whole notebook if I cut it wrong. So, I mean, his cuts through, like that's 8 layers of paper. So, that's pretty good. So that's a bit better. Let's just see. So you can see you can't see any of the pages out the side of the notebook there. Okay. So what we do then is we just sew in the signature. So you work out where you've got your pages. Once again, these are just random little notebooks, and I just put them in. Obviously, if I'm using tiny little pieces of paper, I will sort of try and get them so that they get 2 lots of stitching through them to hold them in place. These are all fairly decent sizes. So all I do is I've just used this cradle, and I have my little U-Butte caddy here with all my bookbinding tools, and I just eyeball this. So I use an awl or a some sort of pokey tool, and I just hope I don't get my head in here. So I just basically hold that in there, and I just pierce the center and just make it go through all layers. I just like to make sure that I've come through, yep. And then I normally just go in about 1 inch, approximately 1 inch from the top, and then eyeball about 1 inch from the bottom. Okay, so any of these holes you're not going to see on the spine because we're going to put that fabric piece. Sorry if I'm knocking the camera there. So what I do is, well, to be truthful, I waste a lot of thread because I don't even measure. So what I do is I just, and I think I've done quite a few, so I just sort of pull out a decent amount. I do like to double my threads through these. I don't know whether that's a done thing or whether you're supposed to just use one thread. This is actually a linen thread, I think. Yeah, linen. This is a linen thread, and it's a Gutermann brand. I do like that, but I've got, you know, quite a few here. I've got this one here. It's a waxed linen. I haven't used it yet, so but I just like to use this fairly neutral color. So use a tapestry needle, and what I'm doing is, because I want the and see I've moved all this now, so just find the center. I'm actually going to do 3-hole pamphlet stitch, but I'm starting from the back because I don't want my threads hanging on the inside, and I want the threads all enclosed in the fabric that I'm going to be putting over the spine. Okay, so I'm making, I have always, ever since I've started doing journals, I have always struggled with, not so much struggle, but I can never get a signature just sewn in one step. I always have to fiddle around and muck around trying to find the holes and the pages, and I don't know what it is. I guess we all have one place, one area of our crafting that we find difficult, and this is mine. See what I mean? I can't even I found it now. Like the holes are punched, they're all punched at the same time. Why don't they all go through in one step? That did. See, look, making a liar out of me. Maybe I need to video them every time and I'll get it right. So when you come to here, and I mean most of you already probably know this, but for those of you that are new and to junk journaling and don't, I always, so you've got your middle thread here, I always bring my thread out either side of that. So I have that one lot of thread coming this side and one lot of thread coming this side. So pull it taut. You don't want to sort of pull it so that it's going to rip the hole bigger. Once again, it's going to be covered in this instance, but so this is really taut on the inside, so you can see that's what you want. And then I just tie it off. And I do it in, normally like a double knot would suffice. I like to do, I don't know, 3 or 4. So as you can see, as I said, I waste a lot of thread, but I would rather have too much than not enough. So I'm just going to sew, because you don't want a huge big knot, so that's 3 times, and then I'm just going to cut that off so you can see that's it there. And basically that's your notebook. Pretty cool, hey? So this is where, let me just pop this away. And once again, sorry about the shaking the camera. So this is where we add our fabric piece. So that's going to cover any holes. I mean, same again, you don't have to do that. You can actually do this and have your threads hanging out here. Add beads to it if you want to, or you can have your threads on the inside. You can put lace. You can do another piece of paper or card. Totally up to you. I just like the different tactile pieces, so that's why I'm using fabric. Excuse me for a minute. Sorry about that. So what I've found, I just like to fold this piece in half, just roughly, doesn't have to be exact, and I just like to finger press it. It just makes it easier to adhere it to the journal, to the notebook, journal, whatever you want to call it. So with my glue, so I just do one side first. The first time I did one of these, I did the whole strip, and oh boy, I ended up in a huge mess. So I end up in a mess anyway with any of my glue. I have it everywhere. Sometimes I like, I mean, I wash my hands all the time, but because I've got so much glue on them, it doesn't always come off. But sometimes I'll duck out quickly and I've got all this glue, and I just think, oh no, people must think I have some form of skin disease or something. So, but anyway, that's one of the downfalls, I suppose, of doing this. So you can see, that's why I folded it in half, just so that I can find where the center is, and you don't do that. And you can see some of the glue has come through. That will dry. You won't really notice that. So I just lightly press it all down, just so that you know it's going to stick. And then I just like to run my hand over the centerpiece as well. Just rub off any excess glue. I've been a little bit liberal with the glue there, unfortunately. So yeah, don't put too much glue. I mean, it comes off, it just rubs off. So that's, you know, it's not a huge issue. Don't stress if you do have glue everywhere. And then I just like to try and gently pull some of the threads. Once again, this is just me. I like all my threads hanging. If you've watched some of my videos, you know that that's the style that I like. So I just like to just have some, you know, rough that up a bit. Goobers of glue there. Just rough that up, and then I just flick this over. What have I done here? Okay, I've got the threads from that there stuck. Okay, so then I just flip this over, and you can see these threads sticking out. I just like to run my fingernail there and just let that attach to some of the glue on the other side, just so those pieces are sitting down in the spine there. And I just glue, same as the front piece, just glue, just try not to have too much, but you know, you obviously need enough so that it all catches. And same thing, just gently press it down in place. And as you're doing that, you will pull some threads. That's why I like to stitch this, just because you can unravel it, and it's not going to go any further than the stitching. Once again though, if you don't have a sewing machine, don't stress about it. I mean, if you glue it okay, it's not going to unravel once it hits the glue anyway. So that's basically your notebook, guys. So I'm just going to get a little bit of seam binding for the closure. This is my trusty drawer of seam binding, and I'm probably just going to go something like this, I think. Do I go darker? Maybe I could go yellow for that. Actually, I'm going to go the yellow. I think I like that. So if I can find the end of it. Oh, this is another mess that I've got to try and clean out. So I don't know, I just fold it over, and because I've done a few, I like to double the seam binding. So I do 2 lots that length, whatever that is. I don't know. Do you want me to measure it? I can roughly measure them for you. Just so you get a nice full bow when you tie it, that's all. So this piece here is about 1/2 meter, so probably about 1/2 meter each piece if you cut about 1/2 meter. So I just thread mine, double it over and thread mine from the inside to the out and pull that through like that. Do exactly the same on the back. Okay. And there you have a very cute little gift, or a very lovely item that you can sell at your market stall. I mean, how beautiful is that? Who wouldn't want a notebook like that? Especially if you're a stationery addict. I just don't think you can go wrong with that. So that's why I do 1/2 meter. You get just a nice full bow there. So that's the back and the front. So as I said, I'm doing mine nude. You can put pockets, you can decorate these if you like. You can add more pages, just remembering that they will get quite full. You can add all sorts of random pages. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much that you can do. You could add book pages. I have done some where I have added book pages as well. Images out of book pages, that sort of thing. So I just think that's a really lovely gift. Now, that took me, that's with going off camera and sewing as well, and my partner's just turned up, so I'm going to finish very quickly. It's taken 45 minutes to do that, so a very easy gift to do very quickly. So thanks guys for your time, and I hope you have a good day and get some crafting in. We'll see you next week. Bye bye.